Welcome to the FWA review. A little late as we round up all the action from the long bank holiday weekend. Delighted to be joined by our former chairman, Gerry Cox of Haters TV. Only one place to get started. I'm going to be a bit pesky and we'll just mention the fact that Tottenham actually recorded a long-awaited victory at Old Trafford. Harry Kane finally scoring for them as well there. You're not special anymore, the chant, and of course are not to be forgotten and will be in the montage, many montages of his career. That's going to be slotted right in there in the file, isn't it? Respect, respect, respect. Does he deserve it, Gerry?
Well, whatever he deserves, he's going to get remembered for this one. It's, as a few people have pointed out, it's like the Kevin Keegan, I love it. And it's a bit like Rafa Benitez and the facts at Liverpool. He's going to be remembered for this now. Now, whether he wants to be remembered as a man walking out the door pleading for respect for titles he won going back 15 years is another story. You know, he's sort of living in the past a little bit if he's talking about his 3 titles, because, you know, you're talking about 2005, 2006, where 2 of them were. And clearly there's a problem at Man United. I mean, huge problem. It's not just on the field, it's obvious. They just, you know, they started off well, and once Spurs settled down and got in the game, they just picked them off, and that defence just looks all over the shop, and the shape, and the, you know, you hear about rifts with Mourinho and Woodward, you hear about the players and Pogba's agent getting involved. It's not good, you know, it's a toxic mix, and well, some people are writing his obituaries already in terms of football, so watch this space.
Yeah, you picked up a few. I know Gary Neville said they should stick with him, but most of the writers across the back pages saying they don't think he can redeem it.
It's Manchester United, you know, they're not going to hang around two defeats in 3. I know they did it back in '92 and went on to win the league after Alan Hansen's famous "you win nothing with kids," but you know, they could buy Eric Cantona that season, and that made a big difference. I don't think that's going to happen this year. And you know, the rest of the top 4 or 5 is so strong, they can't afford to get off to a start like this, so they're already, you know, battling uphill, and I think it's tough.
Ian Ladyman wrote a really nice contrasting article actually about the nature, and it says, drained of belief, United show the damage inflicted by their manager, and it talks about that back line, that lack of confidence, because they know they're just going to get subbed the minute they make a mistake, which is what happened at Old Trafford, in comparison to Danny Rose and Alderweireld, who have obviously had some difficulties going in and out of the squad, but put in really strong performances, and that connection with the manager, a really nice contrasting piece there.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing as well is that, you know, if as we're led to believe, Ed Woodward had decided 50 million was a good fee for Toby Alderweireld, he'd have been blamed for United last night instead of Tottenham, and he played really well for Tottenham, and United could do with a player like that, and Danny Rose likewise. So, you know, the contrast there, and also with the managers, you know, again, Pochettino's a man for the future, his man management's terrific, and there's no secret United would love him at some stage. So again, you know, you can see the sort of contrast with a man who's possibly his best days are in another era, and man on the up.
Ollie Holt with a good piece on Sunday, maybe premeditating what we probably thought might happen, a short-term shock jock and king of conflict. Ed Woodward knew what he was buying.
Yeah, I mean,
getting.
You know, there was a lot of there were objections all along with Jose going to United. You know, Sir Bobby Charlton being one of the leading ones, thinking he's not quite the right fit for this club. But I think after the previous 2 managers not really delivering the goods and not really bringing back the glory days of Alex Ferguson, I think United were prepared. You know, I think the club took a view; they were prepared to take Mourinho, baggage and all, but of course you've got to win, you know, and yes, they won the Europa League and the FA Cup in his first season, but you're up against Man City. It's the nightmare scenario. Your rivals are looking like the best team in the country by some distance, favourites to win the league again, they've just won it, and Liverpool as well on the up. You know, that's not good for United fans. So, you know, Mourinho has to be successful. He talks the talk, he's got to sort of walk the walk as well, you know.
He talked about those 3 titles and only 2 managers, all the managers. It's such a premeditated speech that the further time goes on, you start questioning, you know, he planned that was obviously rehearsed. Did he know coming into this they were going to lose it?
No, I wouldn't have said he knew they were going to lose it, but I think he's sort of slightly in damage limitation mode at the moment. You know, and that whole thing going over to the fans at the end, it looks a bit staged, and we've seen it before. You know, we have seen it before, and he's starting to trying to entrench his position. You know, the man of the fans, that sort of thing, defending the heritage of the club. But I wouldn't have said he thought he was going to lose, but he's starting to prepare his defences. You know, get your retaliation in early, as they used to say.
Well, he seems to be in third season syndrome, and this man is not a one-hit wonder, is he? Mo Salah. As Manchester slip up, rather unfortunately for them, this man's not showing any signs of stopping, is he?
No. I mean, the question was asked to Harry Kane, wasn't it? Was he a one-season wonder? And emphatically he said he's not. He's shown it and proved it 2 or 3 years in a row now. And I think that was probably a question mark about Mo Salah. Could he have another season like last year? Because it was so exceptional. He's off and running, and you wouldn't bet against him. They're a good side. They play to his strengths. You know, they've got 2 other forwards who caused mayhem, and a good solid base and creative player. So he's going to score goals.
And what a goalkeeper!
Wow. Well, of course. Yeah.
We've got to look at one of the bigger stories of the weekend, and it is Jonathan Northcroft writing here that Super Rich alerted to the Chelsea sale. I've been speaking to people inside Chelsea, been talking about off the record the fact that a new chief executive's come in and they're cutting the budgets dramatically, and I mean the indications are there.
Well, for a few years Chelsea haven't sort of shown the same appetite to spend like City are and other clubs, at United even. And obviously Roman Abramovich's visa issues are a big factor as well. So it wouldn't be surprising. I think a few people wrote this week that in a way what he set out to achieve, he's achieved. He's been a very public figure here. The notion that he's hiding in plain sight from some of the possible repercussions back in Russia. He's obviously achieved massive success with the football club, got a lot of glory, and will make a huge profit on what he paid. If 2 billion is not enough, which we're led to believe an offer in that region has been mooted and turned down, and he's looking for 2.5 billion. Whoa. It's the biggest sale of any sort of any football club. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's a new stadium which is going to cost a lot of money to pay for it somewhere down the line, and Chelsea will need heavy investment in players to really keep pace with teams like City. And
such a shame as Sarri comes in, 3 wins, and seems to be producing exactly the entertaining football he's wanted, and Hazard behind him, the team behind him. There's a lot of people talking that you wouldn't imagine about the shame of the visa issue, that political move was made on Abramovich.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of this will impact on Chelsea, the football club,
no.
on the team. Sorry, they've got a good system. They're fairly solid. Sarri's obviously brought his ideas in, and they've worked. David Luiz is happier. For example, one of his star players. Hazard, possibly, if he was given free choice, would be somewhere else now, but he's not. He's stayed. Courtois' gone. They've got another really good, promising keeper. A lot of money, but so they're not in a bad position on the pitch. They're as we speak. They're 100% record, and I wouldn't worry too much about Chelsea on the football side. There might be instability off the pitch, but it might actually take them up to another level.
Charlie Wyatt writing in The Sun about Rafa's tactics, and that just 19% possession cannot be excused. Interesting as well that then others have fought back and said, well, these are players that cost, I think the Chelsea players are at least on average worth 4 times more than Newcastle players. And a really nice piece from Sam Cunningham in The Independent about Ashley running Newcastle like Sports Direct.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, well, as we've seen over and over again, you can't really run a football club in the Premier League on the cheap. You can't keep cutting and cutting and cutting. And, they're a team that's not long out of the Championship 2 years ago. They haven't invested heavily since, or hardly invested at all. So Benitez is doing a remarkable job, to get them where they were, halfway up the table last season, on the resources he's had. The way they play, well, you can argue that he's just been pragmatic, thinking, keep Chelsea to 1 goal and try and hit them back, which they did. They got a late equaliser, but then Chelsea scored again. So, yeah, it's not great to watch, and it's not a happy time to be a Newcastle fan at the moment. I know a few friends up there, and they're not happy.
No, Lascelles not getting on with Benitez or believing in his tactics either.
Yeah, well,
we've got
that's
to
not good.
mention that because
he's one of their stars,
yeah,
and he'd be wanted by a lot of clubs.
And they're meant to have this great connection, so it's wrong of us not to talk about that. Whereas it's interesting that it hasn't got quite as many headlines as this.
Yeah, I mean,
you got early hints of this on Friday.
Yeah.
We were very suspicious of it from what we were all hearing and what we knew. And João from ESPN Brazil actually went with his instincts on that one. And it's your thoughts?
Well, it's, sometimes there is no smoke without fire, and of course we don't know for sure what went on, but I think if you read the runes from what happened before and the build up to the game and the suggestion that he might need to be played in a different position, or more might be asked of him, or he might just be dropped and then suddenly he's not in the team, or it's illness, well, if you're adding 2 and 2 up, you can come to 4, and it's still not a great story from an Arsenal point of view, or Mesut Ozil's point of view.
I think the most telling thing is you then don't bring him, if he has been ill, in to meet the team for the risk of spreading germs.
Yeah.
Henry Winter, I think, probably reflecting a lot of people by talking about the fact that this is really your chance.
Yeah.
You've got an opportunity now, because I think there's a lot of great will for us to. I feel like we've said this every season, for him to repeat the brilliant form that we saw him contribute so much. Saw him voted Germany's top player of the year for every season, bar last season, I think. And it's basically just suck it up and remind us why. You are worth.
I mean, it's a new era at Arsenal. A new manager. There's some new young players, some good young players have come into the team, and you want the senior pros to really step up, show some leadership. As I say, it's a new era. All the the Wenger era's over now. It's a chance to really step up, and can he do it? Is it just alien to his game to play the way that a lot of people would like to see him play? And that is really just a bit more work rate. We know about his creativity, but can he be a more of a midfielder that people are requiring, I
did read one tweet that made me laugh at the start of the season, and it was basically reminding people that you can block certain phrases from your Twitter, and they typed in VAR debate. Yeah. But this is going to go on and on. After the World Cup, and what we saw of the World Cup, and how much England were grappled in areas which led to the free kicks, and everyone talked about the set pieces, would have many of those set pieces been given without VAR? What's your view on it? Were the Premier League too cautious? It's coming back in.
Yeah, I think so. I think if the vote had been taken after the World Cup, quite possibly there would be VAR in the Premier League now, because I think it worked pretty well in the World Cup. We saw the teething problems last season. I was at was it Tottenham Rochdale, I think, in the FA Cup, and it was just ludicrous. There must have been 8, 9, 10, interruptions before half time. So that clearly wasn't right. But it seemed to work well in the World Cup. Maybe the Premier League are right to just give it one more year and to think hard about whether it's ready to roll out now. But it's going to be with it sooner or later, probably next year.
Well, Crystal Palace probably would have liked a bit of VAR as well, because I think Wilf Zaha would have liked to have seen a red card across his opponent for one tackle. But a really interesting story from Martin Ziegler about the fact that Palace under Mark Bright have decided to offer players to the lower divisions on loan for free as long as they play, and if not, they have to pay part of their salary. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, because one of the things that we know is we've got a good generation of young English players. Then they hit a barrier, they had a bit of a block getting first team football in the top clubs, certainly in the Premier League and the top echelons of the Premier League. It's difficult for them to play enough games, and they have that period between 19, 21, 22 when they tend to fall behind their European counterparts in terms of games played. And the under 23 and the academy football is just not the same, Premier League B or whatever you call it. Going on loan, but playing on loan is important. And, you've only got to look at the core of that England team in the World Cup. All those players who came through the Championship and lower division football. Dele Alli had played, 100 odd games by the time he was 19 and arrived at Tottenham, because he'd been playing since 16. So Kane got experience, Vardy got experience, Harry Maguire, Kieran Trippier, they've all got experience of lower level football. So it's a great idea. The loan system is a good one as long as those players play, and it's a massive frustration for the big clubs when they send players on loan and they don't get to play football, or they're not. Clubs are more careful about the quality of football they play, which is why they choose the clubs carefully. You know, I know Arsenal, for example, and Tottenham to some extent, they're quite, and Chelsea, they want their players to go to clubs that play in a similar way. So, you know, I think it's a good policy, and hopefully that will benefit England as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. Talking of England, Declan Rice potentially coming over to play for England now. Having said that, London born and bred, but he's played 3 friendlies.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it?
It's a hard one, isn't it?
You never feel completely comfortable when a player switches allegiance, nationality. You know, it seems a bit strange. Listen, he's come on the scene quite quickly. You know, at West Ham United, and he started at Chelsea. Didn't really make it there, but he's now come through. He looked good when he played for Ireland. Obviously, they love him, and it's quite a competitive situation with England. So, you know, he's taken his chances, but he's a good young player. So, you know, it's just one of those weird anomalies that you can play friendlies, under 21s, up to a certain level for one country, and then switch. But, you know, listen, Ryan Giggs did it. Maybe he shouldn't have done, you know.
Also, as to announce as breaking today, Gary Cahill and Jamie Vardy announcing their international retirement as journalists to.
Yeah, good friends of ours.
Yeah,
they're good. Always fantastic. Front up in the mix zones. Yeah. Always good to talk to them. Intelligent, lively. Jamie Vardy at the World Cup was fantastic. Yeah. He was sitting in on the interviews, having a bit of fun with us. You know, the Vardy times. I think he was talking about, wasn't he, with Harry Maguire. Gary Cahill's always been one of those players you can rely on to have a chat and stop and front up. So, I mean, they both had great careers. Yeah. Vardy's is pretty short for England, but I mean, Cahill
winning the
has
Premier
as well.
League at Leicester in a fairy tale. Cahill Champions League, won every title.
Again, I think they see the writing on the wall, and England obviously with, you know, from Vardy's point of view, he's looking at Harry Kane as number 1 for a long time to come. There's some good young players coming through as well. I think he obviously understands that his chances are going to be limited. Gary Cahill again, there's a lot of competition. I mean, it's looking good with Stones, Maguire, and those players. So, you know, they got to the World Cup. They played in the World Cup, so they've had, you know, it's a good time to go.
And there's also plenty more to come from the FWA. You can keep a track on all events on the footballwriters.co.uk website or at the official FWA on Twitter. Gerry, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and yes, keep in touch with us.
Bye-bye.